So, my name is Artur Tanasovsky. I'm a program manager with Microsoft, and I'm based in the development center in Copenhagen, where we develop everything that is in AX in manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, and transportation. I've been with Microsoft for 4 years, and the last year and a half I've worked mostly on the transportation part. I'm based in Copenhagen, but originally I'm from south of Europe, so if you see me talking with my hands and arms, it's not because I want to stretch up, it's because I can't control it. So, today, in the next hour, I will talk about the transportation management. It is one of our new modules that it's coming in the upcoming release this spring in the Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 R3. I've timed myself for around 45 minutes of presentational overview on conceptual level, and then a little bit of demo, and then we will leave some 10-15 minutes for questions and discussions. But I will be available afterwards outside if you need to know some more or want to start another discussion. And a little disclaimer that this is a pre-release product. We are still working on it. We are still finalizing it. So when you see the released version, it might be slightly different than what you're going to see today. So this is the agenda for today. As I said, we will present the new transportation management functionality. First, I will give a little conceptual overview on what kind of concepts are we bringing here, what is it that we are going to do, what are the process flows in it, and how all of it it's organized. And after that, I will make a short demo on how we do the setup, how we organize the tables, what is the minimum setup, what is some other things that you can do to set up. I will mostly concentrate on the outbound flow to show you how that works, but I will shortly demonstrate the inbound flow just to show you that it's a mirror process of the outbound flow. So just to see that that one is also possible. And then, as I said, we will have some time for Q&A. So here is how all the processes are organized in the new TMS module. Here is how we've organized the setup and all the process and data flow that we have here. So first, as I said, we need to do some minimum setup in order to be able to use the transportation management module. So as a minimum, we need to set up at least one carrier and at least one service associated with that carrier. We can set up several services for that carrier, and we can also set up all the accessorial and fuel surcharges associated to that carrier and that particular service. So you might wonder why I've put the setup as part of the process flow and the data flow in this diagram. But that is because lately we have seen a lot of dynamics in the transportation business, so that users are more likely to come to the setup area more often than they used to do before. Just to create an ad hoc corridor, to create an ad hoc price, or to correct one of the charges, etc., etc. And once we've done at least the minimum setup, as I mentioned, then we can start with the transportation planning. And the transportation planning is really the first thing that comes in the flow. Here is where we need to see what is it that we need to transport, how is it that we are going to organize it, consolidate it, can we consolidate something, how can we do that? So here is where we get an overview of what is it there that requires transportation planning, so that we can start grouping that into the needed equipment. And once we've done that, we can go to the rating and the routing process. And as the name says, this is where we actually need to find a rate and a route for our cargo. I'd also like to mention here that these processes can be iterative. So you don't need to be finished with the transportation planning in order to actually in order to do the rating and the routing. So you can create your load, go to the rating and routing, try to find out what that might cost, and then go back, try to put some more orders into the load or take something out. You can really go back and forth and iterate this process as much as is needed, really. Once we've done that, we can complete the process here. We can send a confirmation. We can send also a message to the warehouse that now everything's complete. You can start picking the stuff and packing it, putting it in the bay door, etc., etc. But we have two extra functionalities that can be used if you'd like to use them. So the first one is appointment scheduling. And this is a functionality to give you an overview of how the dock appointments are organized and just to ensure that you don't double book something there. There is also possibility to check in and check out the appointment to make a timestamp of the start and the finish of it, and record a driver log. The record of the driver log is required in some countries for chemical industries, and in some countries it's actually mandatory information for recording that for that load. And we also have, last but not least, the freight reconciliation. Here is where we match the previewed cost that we had at the time of the shipping, and then match it together with the actual costs that have arrived from the carrier invoice. I will go into more details in all of these. So first to mention the transportation planning. This is a scenario that actually starts all the transportation processes. It is here that we need to define, based on the overview that we have, what is it that we need to transport, from where to where, how are we going to group that together with other orders, etc., etc. In AX, in the TMS module, this is always based on some kind of demand. So that demand needs to come either from the sales order, the purchase order, or the transfer order. And again, I would like to point out that these orders do not necessarily need to be in complete state or confirmed state. Just that they are created, just that there is one address on it, you would be able to start the transportation planning and group these orders. And later, of course, as you update these orders, or someone else updates these orders, it will be automatically notified on the load or come as an extra demand, depending on your setup. To do this, you can either do that directly from the sales order or the purchase order or the transfer order. You just click on a button, you go to another form and start the transportation planning. Or you can go to a so-called load planning workbench. Now this load planning workbench gives a complete overview of what kind of demand we have for transportation at exactly that moment. And this is really the transportation planner's working place. He or she would spend most of their time in this workbench and trying to figure out, group the things, and how all that works. So to mention a few keywords, you can do inbound and outbound transportation planning. They are really mirror processes. They are done in completely the same way. The only difference is that one of them comes from a sales order, the other one comes from a purchase order. You can do multi-shipment loads, so you can group several shipments into one load if you need to do a multiple stop itinerary. You can do shipment consolidation. Now, what's the difference between these two? So the first one assumes that you have several shipments that you would like to ship to several customers, and you fill up a truck with these shipments, and then you go from point to point and deliver these. While the other one assumes that your customer that you've just created a shipment for, they might have some other shipments that would be shipped within the same delivery terms. So you could actually group these two and ship those to the customer as one shipment. So there are several possibilities there. You can split the order during the transportation planning. Imagine that you have one sales order that goes over the capacity of what you have on your load. So you can split this into several truckloads or containers. And I know that from out of experience that the transportation planners usually try to put as many boxes in as many containers just to get most usage of the capacity of the containers. And there is an overview of how much capacity left there is for that load as they do the planning. Once we've done that, and again, I'm repeating myself, but I'd like to point out that you don't necessarily need to be finished with this process in order to go to the next one. So that is where we need to find a rate and a route for the cargo that we've just defined. There are several possibilities here. You can either set it up to find the least expensive rate for whatever's offered at that point. But according to me, at least, what is most interesting and what is the strength of this module is the rate shopping. Now, the rate shopping assumes that we have set up with multiple carriers that, let's assume, can give rates for the type of cargo that we've defined. And then by clicking the rate shop button, you would actually get multiple rates with multiple delivery terms and dates for the same load that you just defined. Imagine yourself your own private Expedia that you have set up, where you just go in and type in the origin and the destination of it, and by clicking on one button, you get multiple rates with multiple carriers according to your setup. Of course, everything is user configurable, and then you can choose the one that is most optimal. I'm saying what is most optimal because the least expensive rate might not always be what you would be looking for at that point of time, depending on delivery dates, delivery term, how many segments the carrier would like to use, etc., etc. So sometimes you might want to go for something that is more expensive, but going more direct and make the customer satisfied there. Or we can also define our own route network based on the contracts that we have with carriers. So we can actually define own routes with multiple segments, and each of these segments can actually have a different carrier associated to it and different mode of transport associated to it. So we can do either that or that, and then try to find out what is most suitable for us. To do this process, we go to the load planning workbench. We select the load that we want to rate, and then by a click of a button, we go to the rate route workbench. I will show it in just a few minutes. We find the rate and then assign it to that load. Now, if I could attract your attention for at least 5 minutes during this presentation, that would be actually when I would be talking about the rating engines. Now, these rating engines are the core strength of this module, and they are the ones that actually do all the rating for all the carriers. So every carrier and service is assigned a certain rating engine, and then this rating engine determines how are we going to find the rate for it. They are the ones that are going to calculate the rate for that particular cargo, and the route, of course. Those two almost go always together, hand in hand. Now, the rating engines can be of a very simple nature. Just establish a web link with your carrier, and when you do the rate shopping, you just send a request to their web service. I have this and this cargo from there to there. What kind of rate can you give me? Here is the rate. It's displayed together with the segments, etc., etc. So you can set that up, which can be actually very simple, but they can also call some sub-engines. So they can also have some more complex nature. So let's assume that we have a complex mileage engine or rating engine based on mileage. So one of the sub-engines can actually be just finding the mileage between those 2 points. And even that engine can be independent in itself, contacting a web miler service. There are plenty out there on the market, and that would return the mileage of it. Or we can set up that mileage engine to actually just find the distance in a table that we have. So everything is user configurable, and then that sub-engine, would return the mileage. Then another sub-engine would try to find the rate for exactly that mileage from exactly that postcode to that postcode, and then calculate that one. And then we can include a third engine that actually apportions the costs back to the sales order and how that is done. I will talk a little bit more about that later. So as you can see, you can have a very simple engine that just contacts the carrier, give me a price, returns a price, but we can also have a complex, not complicated, but complex calculations behind trying to find that rate. So we have set up the structure and infrastructure so that it will be very easy for the partners and customers to create their own engines and adjust them to their business needs, whether they want to just connect to one of the postal services or carriers or other service providers. Or you can even set up an engine that, if you have your own fleet, that calculates the costs of the transportation based on your fleet costs. So really, the possibilities are great there. We have strived to provide the infrastructure for it and provide some good documentation around it, and then make it easy for you to implement this. I have another session this afternoon that will be a more interactive session. It's at 2 p.m. where our developer that was doing and structuring these engines will be present. He will have a short presentation during that one as well. So if you're interested, please join at that session, and he would also be available for a discussion after that. To continue, needless to say, all modes of transport are supported. As I mentioned, you can create your own multi-segment and multimodal routes. You can define your multi-stop routes, how you want to go along somewhere it's called the milk run delivery, somewhere it's called the travel salesman delivery. And you can also define constraints, for example, on how your routing should not go, whether you had some constraints for that. To give an example for that would be that, let's say, an inflammable material should not be transported with air transport. So you can set up such a constraint that when you do your rating and routing, those modes of transport would be avoided. And really, the form is quite creative. You can create many other types of constraints there, based on whether the item or the item group or grouping of several products. So it's up to you to decide how to set that up. And last but not least, all the accessorial and fuel surcharges can be defined, can be set up, so that when you do your rating and routing, they will be automatically added and calculated to the rest of the transportation costs. Everything that I mentioned here is user configurable, is set up. Everything is set up by the users, except for the rating engine, where you would need minor coding to adjust them to how your needs with the connection with the carrier is. Everything else is set up through forms. So you can use all these things out of the box as they are. And as I mentioned, once we've done the rating and the routing, we send confirmation, we send message to the warehouse that now they can start with picking the goods, packing them, putting them at the bay door. The setup with the warehouse is also flexible how you do it, whether you want to automate everything or you want to do everything manual. That's also user configurable. You can decide how to do it. And then we send confirmation for that. So as I mentioned, we could stop with the processes there, but we have also two extra functionalities. One of them is the freight reconciliation. I have to point out here that the freight reconciliation is not to be confused with the invoice reconciliation process that is in accounts payable. This is still an operational process. Those of you that work with transportation know that more often than not, that when the carrier invoice arrives, usually the cost lines there are more often than not different from what we previewed in the beginning. So we need this process to, on an operational level, match the invoice lines with the accrual lines that we had at the time of the shipping. We can also set this up to be an automatic process. There is a form where you can set up your tolerances. You can either set them up on invoice level or on a line level or on a charge level or both. So you can, for example, set up that on invoice level my amount tolerance is plus minus 10%, but if the fuel surcharge is more than $10 different, then I'd like to take a look at it manually. So there are several possibilities on how to do that. And once the invoice is approved and submitted, then you can set it up to create a vendor invoice in accounts payable, so that it can be taken through the accounting processes. Then it is at this time that the accounting people would actually take over the process, because that is the first financial moment that happens at that time. And last but not least, the appointment scheduling. It's just a simple functionality to give us an overview of how do we handle our dock appointments. We can define our docks and how they look like on the warehouse, whether they're inbound or outbound docks, or everything is the same. It's really totally up to you to design how to do that. And then you can start booking the appointments on that one. I mentioned that there is possibility to see the appointment history, exceptions, record a driver log, should that be necessary for the industry that you are in or that you are supporting, and then create a check-in and check-out of the appointment if you want to use it later for the accuracy of that carrier. And that is more or less what I had on conceptual overview for the transportation module. I could take 3 or 4 minutes with questions before we actually go on with the demo. So if any of you had questions, yes. Can I get that again? Sorry. So not at that point. So at that point, it is keeping the accruals in a TMS invoice table, and then later when the invoice arrives, either electronically or generated manually, after the reconciliation, it actually, for the first time since, link to the accounts payables module. So at this point, no. Yes. You mean like driver time or driver accuracy? So not directly to the payroll, but I'm sure it would be easy to connect that to the appointment scheduling form, so that you can see the driver accuracy.
Scheduling is actually allowing us to report the time estimated versus the actual.
Yes. Okay. Yes, and then how you use it after that, you can actually use it for multiple purposes. But at this point, it is not connected to the payroll, because it is assumed that the driver is, there is the flexibility that the driver can be an internal or external at that time. And I could take maybe one more question, yes? So that would probably be possible with the portals at some point, but we haven't done that here out of the box. But yeah, so the question was if you could allow access to your external freight forwarders, direct access to some of the tables. So we don't provide that out of the box, but I'm sure with putting a portal, I don't know if you're familiar with the vendor and customer portals. So through that link, it would probably be possible, but I have to be honest to say I haven't tried it so far. Okay, I will have some more time for questions later, so if we could just now go to AX. So for those of you that are familiar with AX, with the previous versions, you might already know the form. So here is how the new transportation module actually looks like, and the warehousing together with it. I forgot to mention that the transportation module and the warehousing module are tightly integrated and connected. And depending on how you set up your processes, you can either fully automate the warehousing flow of it, or make a detailed and elaborate warehousing process out of it. So here is how it looks like in AX today. As I mentioned, it's just another module today. We've integrated it very good with the rest of AX. Sorry. Now the setup area that I mentioned, here is where we would define at least the minimum setup needed for using the TMS. So we would define all of our carriers and all the services that they provide. And then with each service, I have defined my own rating profile, meaning how I would like to execute this rating with it. So all of it has defined a rating master and a rating engine, and then whenever I call the rating button, it will call this rate master and the engine. Now the definition of how the rating is done is, of course, determined by the engine, but then it is also determined by the rating master. So in the rating master, I would define, or I have the possibility to define for which postal codes combinations this would be valid. And probably a lot of you know that a lot of the carrier contracts, especially the trucking and the ground carrier contracts, they're actually a very big Excel sheet where you have, I can show it on the other one. Yes. So here is where we would define all the tables and how all the pricing is going to happen with that carrier. So if I take one of them and just show you, so the rate master for that one. So here I have defined, of course, the postal codes combination for which that would be valid, but also define the pricing table. So here, for example, for this particular carrier and for this particular service, I would be using this pricing structure for finding out the rate. And even the break points here are also defined by the user. And if you need some other breakpoints, you can very easily just create another break master and then use it in the pricing. So in this way, we have provided the possibility to simulate these very complex carrier contracts into the tables of the carrier setup, and then use them during the rating. So as you can see, a lot of the transportation management module is actually a lot of setup up front. You might need to go through a lot of tables, probably make a lot of scripts that would be filling up all these tables. But the setup is, it is cumbersome and maybe complex, but then all of the other processes that are around transportation are actually executed within few clicks. So don't be disappointed if there is a lot of setup. The beauty of it comes afterwards. And here is also where you would probably define your connections to your 3PLs. So this does not necessarily need to be an actual carrier. This can also be another service provider, a 3PL offering you multiple carriers and services. Really, there is a lot of flexibility built into this one. Now, I also mentioned the engines. So the engines are also configurable by the user, but in order to define exactly the type of engine that you would like to use, you would need to do a little bit of coding to adjust it, whether it's a web link and how that web link should be executed. Now, out of the box, we will be providing an LTL engine, a mileage engine, a rail engine. Then we also have a point-to-point contract engine, meaning if you have contracted rates with some carriers, so that would also be out of the box. We will also provide out of the box a zone engine, meaning that within your country you can define your postal codes belonging to a certain zone, and then do the pricing according to that zone. And the beauty of it is that you can use all these carriers with each assigned rating engine during your rate shop process. So for some of the cargo that you have, it might be that the zone engine would return with the best rate, but for some of it, it might be that the trucking company would, using a totally different engine, would return with the best rate. And another engine that I would like to mention is the mileage engine. To make things very simple, here I've just defined it in a table. That's the distance between these postal codes, roughly, according to Bing Maps, is this one. But I don't know if you remember, I mentioned that instead of using this mileage sub-engine, you can actually make a web mileage engine service and connect to one of those miler services to actually get back the exact mileage that you would need. There are plenty out there on the market, and it's very easy to set them up and to make an engine of your own. And we will be providing a good documentation on how to create these. And the last of the engines that I wanted to mention is that when you confirm the shipment, you can make a setup that the transportation costs are transferred back to the sales order so that you can bill them further to the customer. Now we have set up some kind of logic behind that these transportation costs can be distributed based on the volume or the weight or per piece. So you can actually choose for each carrier and each service what kind of, it's called apportionment engine, you would like to use in order to transfer the costs back to the sales order. Because I think the customer might not be happy if you had several orders on that load, and each of those loads got exactly the same transportation costs regardless of what it is. So you have the possibility to distribute these back either on the purchase order or on the sales order, again based either on the weight, the volume, or by piece. And the last but not least, to mention the routing, how you can create your own segments for that. As you can see, I've defined for this particular route 2 segments, where one of them is operated by truck, the other one is by rail. I can either call the rating for these each of these segments, and it will call the rating engine to find the price. Or if I had spot rates for exactly that one, I don't know if I have for that one, but then I can just enter that for this segment, no matter the mileage or no matter what the engine returns, I would like to use this pricing. And the constraints, it's where I just defined, for example, that's one certain item. Oh, the form is not visible. One certain item should be restricted from this kind of routing, either a carrier or a particular service or a particular mode of transport. I can even set effectivity dates for this. And the possibility is to either give me a warning when I do the routing, and then I can accept it or not, or to fully restrict that action. So that was all I had around the setup. So now if we could just make a quick flow, how it looks like. So as I mentioned, you can either go directly from the sales order, create one sales order very quickly. Take an item. And I can either do the transportation planning from here and add it to a load, create a new load, or what is more interesting is if I go to the transportation module, open the load planning workbench, and here I would get a complete overview of what needs transportation planning at this point. So it's divided according to the orders. So anything that needs outbound transportation planning would be under the sales order lines, and all the planning happens per order line. So you can safely count on having different order lines with different delivery terms and even different addresses and different delivery dates, because all the planning that happens is happening per line. But should you feel comfortable that you want to add the whole order to the load, so just select the button, add entire order to the load, and then you would not need to make the planning line by line. So here I can see all the outbound transportation. I can see if there is a need for some inbound. I can see that I have several purchase orders here that need inbound. I can also see if there is something that needs to be transferred internally. I have something that needs to be from warehouse 42 to 60, so I can also plan for that. Really, this workbench is the cockpit. It's the working place of the transportation coordinator. I assume at least that they would spend most of the time in this workbench trying to figure out what is available for planning at this point. How can I combine this? Now, a very powerful feature is this load planning filter, and this load planning filter help us a lot in how do we want to consolidate our order lines. Here I've created just one filter that says ship to Georgia, and that means that this filter would filter out all the orders that are not with shipping address in Georgia within this week. And then by selecting that filter, and I'm cheating a little bit here because all the orders are to Georgia here, but you can easily create your own filter. If you're familiar with the edit query functionality, you can just create a new filter and select all the fields that are available on the load or on the shipment, and then do some filtering there. So another example would be to filter only or give you only the order lines that would be shipped from your own warehouse to California within next week. So you can set up that kind of filter, run it, and then you would get a suggestion here on how you can consolidate your orders, how many of these you you can put together into one load. So the order that I just created was this one. I will just add it to a new load. I will add equipment. I can easily create my own new equipment. I just go to the equipment form and then say 20-foot container, define the characteristics of it, and then I can use it. Right away after that. And here I also have the possibility to see that when I add this order to the load, how is the capacity per weight and per volume? Do I have enough space to put it there, or do I need to put it either to another load or maybe split the order into several loads? So after I've got an overview of that, so now I can see that the load had been created. And here is the load. And then I can either add new orders to this load, or I can go to the rating and routing process. For that, I just go to the rate and route workbench. And I can see here that a lot of data is already inherited from the sales order. So the from and the to address, and then the LTL class if we want to do LTL rating, weight and volume, and all this information is needed for the different engines in order to find the rate and the route. If you want to find the least expensive rate, just click on Rate Shop, and you have to trust that the rate that comes up now will be the least expensive. It only costs $1, so cheaper than that can't be. But as I said, the more interesting one is actually the rate shopping. So here, based on all those carriers that you saw in the carrier form, all of these carriers actually return some kind of rate for this cargo. And then based on all these information that I have here, the shipment date, the delivery date, I can also review what kind of segments they will have, and then look at the details of each segment. Now in this case I only have one, but then depending on the setup or what the carrier returns, I would review all the segments here and then make a decision on how, on which one of these I'd like to choose. I don't know if you noticed here, but there is a column called shipper rate and then a column called customer rate. Now what does that mean? That means that I can actually make a setup so that when the transportation charges are sent back to the sales order, the customer would see a different rate than what we are actually paying to the carrier. And that can be either a very simple setup or a complex setup, depending on how I want to show the rate to the customer. Now imagine whenever you buy a book online that only costs 1 cent, and you might wonder how the online retailer earns money on some book that only costs 1 cent, but the postage and handling costs actually $5. So you can set this up here so that you would pay to the carrier, let's say $1.50, but the customer would see the $5. You can also accomplish here complex contracts that you might have with a customer. So some of your customers might have a specific contract with one of these carriers. So you can actually make the setup that they are always transported only with that carrier, provided on their contract and codes that they have. So really, everything is user configurable. You just need to set it up in the correct tables, and then, as I said, when you execute the transportation in few clicks, it will be there. So now that I've, let's say, found the correct rate, I would choose one of those, not necessarily the cheapest one. I review the route, try to add a new segment if necessary, try to maybe combine some of these, and then go back to the load planning workbench. And now, I don't know if you remember, I mentioned that you can still add things to this load, actually. You just need to remember to re-rate it after that, or if you forget to re-rate it when you confirm the shipment, it will be done for you. So that will be really the final the final rate for it. So the last thing to do here is, if I don't want to add anything else to it, is just to send a message to the warehouse that now everything is prepared. You can start picking the goods. And you can see here that I've automated all the warehousing processes so that everything is executed in the background. So you can either do this. Now everything is put on the bay door and put on the truck and it's about to be shipped. Or you can make a setup that actually goes manually through all the warehousing processes and go around with the mobile device and scan and put things on the correct location, etc., etc., etc. So you have either the one extreme, the other extreme, and many shades of gray in between, depending on how your business logic should be set up. And the last process needed here is that I just need to confirm the shipment, and then I'm done. So now if I just see which sales order it was, then we can see that the costs are transferred, so it's 277. So they should appear under miscellaneous. Oh, I think it was another one. Yeah. So they should appear under miscellaneous charges into that one. I will quickly create one more, and also to show you how you can actually split an order into several loads. So I quickly create one sales order for my customer that wants to buy, let's say, 20 cables. Go to the load planning workbench. And here, as you can see, if you go from the sales order, when you go to the load planning workbench, it only displays that particular order line that you are planning for. While if you were going from the load planning workbench, there you would see all the overview of it. So here I can see that I have 20. I want to add them to a new load, but let's say the capacity of the load is not enough, so I can just put 12 of these to the load, and then the rest 8, as you can see, would be still left on the demand lines. So later I can do those two, or I can just add them to the same load now. So I just, to add something to an existing load, so just select the existing load, select the order line that you would like to do, and click on existing load. And as you can see here, I can't choose the load template anymore because it assumes that I've chosen that one already. But there is some flexibility there too. Flexibility always brings complexity. So I can actually change the load template here. So assume that I want to put some more things on this truck, on this load, but I can see that the equipment is either not big enough already, or that if I need to ship this one and I've chosen a large truck and I want to change it into a smaller truck, so I can just do that here. So then quickly again, go to the rating and the routing, do the rate shop, select the rate, release it to the warehouse, and confirm the shipment. And now I can see that the costs are transferred here as miscellaneous charge, so that they can be passed on later later to the customer. So that was around all that I had for this. One last thing, I promised to show you how an inbound transportation would go. So if I just go quickly to the load planning workbench and see what is to be planned for purchase orders, just select one, and the process is really the same. Add it to a load and then go to the rating and routing process, and really those processes are mirrored. Because all of the transportation module that is set up is actually set up from postcode to postcode, or from an address to address. So TMS doesn't really care whether it's an inbound or outbound. They just care from where to where and what is it that I need to transport. The rest is up to you, really. So we have around 8-9 minutes for questions. Yes, I was actually asked if you could use a microphone for the questions.
You indicated earlier that you could set up zones for zip codes in the United States. Can you also set up zones for overseas locations as well?
Yes. Yes. So then, I mean, you might need to build another zone engine for that would handle all those overseas zones, but the concept would be the same. Yes. Yes.
Initially, you mentioned about fleet management. So, is there anything to manage the?
Yeah. So the fleet management as such is not in yet. It's on our backlog, but you can set up the costing structure for your own fleet if you would like to see that, and add that as a transportation charge.
So right now there is no scheduling and managing the fleet.
So you can schedule you can schedule appointments on your docks, but that is really based on the dock, not on a particular vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other? Okay, but in that case, oh, sorry, yes.
Do you have any load optimization tools within that system? Cube, weight?
Not at this point.
Okay.
No, but I've had in mind some ideas. The thing is here that there are many algorithms out there that you can actually connect to, and there are many external services that you could also integrate with. So yeah, okay. But at this point, no.
Thank you. Last one.
Yes.
Does output orders still exist?
Sorry again.
Output orders, do they still exist?
Output orders. So that is a WMS2 feature.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, but in that case, thank you for attending.